We're live.
We are live.
We are.
So,
I'm alive. Are you alive?
I'm alive. I'm alive.
As opposed to being a dead person.
Yes.
In a corporation.
Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly
Like
right.
your birth certificate.
On my birth. Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. We maybe want to do a podcast about it.
We might do a podcast about something.
Okay. So good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Inside Out Effect podcast. This is part one of a two-part episode. And the topic of the podcast is conflicts, the contagion myth, and the real cause of sickness and illness. Now, I know, and we have mentioned it in previous podcasts that, that you've watched, and maybe your head is exploding right now, but it is true. The contagion is a myth, and we will be explaining in detail the what, the how, and the why.
And the what?
And the
what, the how, and the why?
What, the how, and the why.
Wow, okay, I can't wait.
So,
I'll do the what and how, and you do the why.
I'll do the what.
Yeah, brilliant.
So I'm the host, Stephen Jakes, from Healing the Mind.
He's had a drink. It's New Year. He's had a drink. It's
a drink. I'm the host, Stephen Jakes, DTO specialist, therapist, mental and emotional health specialist, creator of the healingthemind.co.uk, and also co-founder of the Inside Out Effect. And alongside me, I have the ever-present and the conqueror of Mount Everest when it comes to mental and emotional and physical health, with his discovery and the development of the DTO system, which has helped many, many people over a period of time. He's also the author of the book, The Emotional Blueprint to Healing Chronic Pain, as well as the DTO Handbook. I have the Chris Bonington, the Sir Edmund Hillary, and the Sherpa Tenzing Norgay. Let me bring the ever-present, my good friend and business partner, the awesome Jonathan Shaw. Hi, John.
Mate, well, welcome that was.
Yeah,
that was a really good.
You like that?
Into the year. That was a fantastic introduction.
Thanks, mate.
Into the year. I can't wait to see what you're going to introduce me as tomorrow.
Just wait and see.
Let's wait and see.
Depends how this one goes, really.
I was going to say, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So that's some interesting facts on obviously Mount Everest. I bet you. Did you know that George Mallory was the first person to attempt it?
I only knew that because you told me this afternoon when you said you could do this. And he died.
Yeah, he died. And so Edmund Hillary, he was a New Zealand beekeeper.
Yeah. And
he was the first person to conquer Everest in 1953. Okay. And so that's quite an interesting fact as well. Okay. For a guy from New Zealand. Cool. But the first British person, there was two British guys under the guise of Chris Bonington's expedition. One was Dougal Harrison. He's a Scottish guy, right? He done it with a geezer called Doug Scott. So anyway, they were the first Brits to have conquered Everest in 1975. Oh, okay. And here's another interesting fact, if you are interested in Everest at all.
Yeah.
Not the double glazing. But as of today, as of September 2020, 5,790 people have actually reached the top of Mount Everest.
Wow, that's a lot of people.
There's a lot of people. Yeah.
I didn't want it to be that.
I thought it was about 30.
Yeah, I would have thought it would be that. 5,000. That's a huge amount of people.
Yeah, so 5,790 people have reached the summit of Mount Everest, which I thought was quite fascinating, and I thought I would share that information with you, ladies and gentlemen, on this lovely New Year's special edition of the Inside Out Effect podcast. So anyway, John,
we will be rebranding the podcast, the Reader's Digest podcast of 2021, and Steve will be sharing all of his general knowledge.
I haven't got that much general knowledge.
Oh, okay.
So anyway, mate, how are you? How was your Christmas?
It was good. It was lovely. It was nice and quiet.
Yeah.
Took Mum down to the beach. And took Belle, the dog, down to the beach, and Belle had never seen sand before, so she was like, what's this? She was looking for snow. She really likes snow at Christmas. Belle. Yeah. She loves snow.
Good.
And then we went back, opened presents, and had dinner, and watched a couple of movies. Watched Home Alone 2. Love that movie.
Yeah.
And that was a nice Christmas, really. It was lovely.
Great.
So yeah, it's nice and peaceful and quiet.
Awesome.
Yeah. What about you?
Well, I had a fantastic Christmas. Yeah. Mine was amazing. I woke up in the morning, rolled over, give my lovely young lady a big hug, got my little present out, which I put aside beside her in my bed, give that to her. Then I went out of the shower, went downstairs and made breakfast for us all, and then sat under the tree. We exchanged gifts and watched the kids open their presents. It was lovely. And then whilst the kids were playing with all their toys, it was I come out in the kitchen, made a lovely dinner for the whole family, watched it. And in the afternoon, we played, with the kids' toys, and then all sat on the sofa and watched family Christmas movies. It was absolutely amazing. I had the best Christmas ever. Then I woke up and realised that it was actually bloody cold, and I come downstairs, made a cup of coffee, and sat thinking, is this Christmas? And then I had a bath.
Yeah.
Had another cup of coffee, and then wasted as much time as possible till I got around my mum's. Had dinner, fell asleep down there, come back. But luckily enough, I did have you turn up Christmas Day evening, and so that was it. It's fantastic Christmas. Didn't get to speak to my boy, which is a massive disappointment, which was sort of upsetting, but So Christmas non-event for me really, not at all. Boxing Day was nice because obviously again you came over and we had dinner and that, which was great. But it's not seemed to be been able to speak to my son, or not even. I haven't even spoken to him yet, so I've left him a few messages. But that was a bit disappointing. But overall, it was just a non-event for me really. It was quite sad.
I think it was for quite a few people who are used to having, like your mum said, she used to over having 10 or 12 people, and we was 4 people.
I did actually think about buying a present and wrapping it up for myself and then putting it under the tree. So when I come down in the morning, I could go, and open. But I thought that was pretty damn sad to do that. So I didn't do that. It'd been even sad if you'd wrapped up the Christmas dinner, like individual Brussels sprouts, the chicken. If you'd wrapped that up and then put that under the tree, that'd been quite sad. Yeah, it would have been. But you didn't do that. No, I didn't do that. I didn't do that. So Christmas really not been an event at all, really. So it's been pretty miserable. And like I said, I think it's been the same for many other people as well. But there you go. So anyway, I did get a lovely message from one of our viewers who said it was really nice that we do these podcasts, because it's actually nice to have the opportunity. Loves listening to what we do and say, because it gives her a sense of groundedness, because I think what she said means that she isn't going crazy, and there are like-minded people out there that have the same opinion and knowledge as us. So it's sort of like a godsend that we do this, because it allows her to get back in touch with reality compared to all the craziness in the world, which I sort of have to tend to agree with. So there you go. And so Mum, if you're listening, thanks for that. It was great. Thanks for the compliment.
No, I think people need that at the moment, because there is so much craziness, and there are the people who think like we do are perhaps in a minority at the moment, although I'm not sure how accurate that is. I actually think it's starting to swing the other way now, where people are starting to see the craziness. They might not necessarily know why I completely understand, but they are starting to see the craziness. So I think more people are starting to see it now, but there are still some very mad people out there who are still buying into what's going on in the world and not really understanding what's actually going on in the world. Which is quite sad, really. So we're just trying to wake people up and give people some hope and positiveness, and get them to see that that they are safe. And we're trying to promote safety. We're trying to promote that you're healthy and well, you're okay, rather than fear and just destruction and staying in and all this bollocks.
Yeah, absolutely. And Toby said she totally agrees with that, and I look forward to your podcast. I think
Thanks, Bob.
And it's all. We only share this information because we know it. And right now, everyone's just running around like nutters. I just have to look on my Facebook feed to just see all this stuff that people are posting, and it's none of it's validated. It's just information repeating, and it just really saddens me right now that people just don't go and learn about anything. They just sit in front of a screen and just believe absolutely everything they're told, and it just saddens me because it affects everybody else. Just that ignorance is just and the willingness not to do it. It just is affecting everybody else. But so.
Well, I've been thinking about this, and I can't understand why people are not really seeing the insanity of it. I mean, we talked about it before, where you think the virus you can tell the time, and the virus knows we're sitting and standing or not. So I've been thinking why people can't see the insanity. I think it's because they literally can't see the NHS lying to them.
No, exactly.
But I think they can't get this concept that maybe, just maybe, there are people out there who work in the NHS who are not as honest as perhaps they might be. And just maybe they are actually lying and being paid to lie.
Yes.
And in fact, they have lied for years about certain things. And people, I don't think, can quite comprehend that perhaps
that's even a possibility.
That's even a possibility, because they're there to supposedly to help us. Just like mental health organisations are supposed to be there to help us, but they lie consistently as well about you being able to get rid of it. And I can prove that's a lie, because when they say you can't get rid of it and then mean you get rid of it, only one of those must be true.
Absolutely.
So that's just not relevant. I mean, and we have client testimonials to back it up, going, no, we got rid of our anxiety and depression. So and they don't have that. They don't have those testimonies, because they have been lying for years, and I think people can't comprehend that a body or group of people that are supposed to help would lie.
Yeah.
And that's the problem.
Yeah.
That's what they can't get their heads around.
Yeah, they can't.
So when
and
other people are saying...
I also think as well as they don't believe that the TV lies, the media lies, or the government lies, which are the three most corrupt in the world. But nobody's lying. And then, I mean, because like I said in the last podcast, when you know what we know, when it comes to viruses, then there has to be a lie. And I've been saying this since February. I've been telling people this since February. And it's just people just can't see past it. And I think you're right that there's this cognitive dissonance or even acceptance that there is a possibility that that's even possible. So,
see, I think people actually deep down on some level know the government lie.
Yeah.
I think most people are aware the government lies.
Everyone knows every politician lies, and you wouldn't. But when they're all together in a group, they tell the truth.
Yeah, apparently. But I think we're all aware governments lie, and people can see that. It's just the fact that the NHS is doing it as well, and they can't get their head around that. If the NHS wasn't there, they'd look at the government and go, "You're talking bollocks, mate. What you on about?"
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly,
literally look at Boris and go, "You're a prick."
Yeah.
But they're not, because I think the NHS is complicit in this, and there's other organisations complicit in this as well.
Yeah.
And the media, and that's why. But I mean, you know, I've you know, and it's not all of the NHS. Don't misunderstand me. There are some amazing doctors and nurses out there.
Yeah.
It's not actually that. It's how the medical profession has grown since Rockefeller.
Yeah.
So since the Rockefeller, and I don't know exact date he
medical
started
schools,
it.
it's around about 1922.
Right, 1922. So since Rockefeller created his model of medicine, was allowed to create that, that's where it all went wrong. That's where it all became more of a scam. And there's actually been doctors admitting that they go into it for the right reasons, but as soon as they find out this Rockefeller nonsense, they have to go with it. They're not allowed to step outside of it. They're not allowed to question anything, even if they really want to. And there are a lot of good doctors and nurses out there who are standing up now, stating that this is not what it appears to be, that this pandemic is not how it appears to be, but they're just not in mainstream media. And there's so many of them now, so many doctors and nurses standing up, and scientists and experts, real genuine experts who have nothing to gain from this, standing up going, this is not a real pandemic, it's nothing more than the flu, the statistics aren't there to back anything up, it's just complete fabrication.
I think the problem is that when people are dying of stuff, and you know, and then they've been allocated that label of that's what it was, then the next minute you're seeing somebody posting something saying, yeah, I know he died of COVID, I see he's in ICU, blah, yada, yada, yada. Now, I'm not saying that people aren't dying of stuff, but what they're telling you of and how they're getting it or how they're contracting it is not through transmission, because we know, and this is why we call it the contagion myth, there is no proof of contagion ever in the history of ever. And epidemiology is just basically where a load of doctors get together and go, well, if you've got it and you've got it and you've got it, well, the only way that you could all three have got it is to have caught it or transmit it to each other, which we know not to be true. And
that was exactly what they thought about scurvy originally, didn't it? When the people came over in the boats and they were found dead, they thought it all contracted it until they realised it was just a lack of vitamin C.
Correct.
And so they misdiagnosed it wrong to begin with.
It's the same with the Spanish flu. After the First World War, they tried to prove contagion then. I mean, they were doing all sorts of stuff, never ever proved it. And we know, again, through colds, that you don't catch colds. We spoke about this in the last episode. We know you don't catch colds, and we've proven how you don't catch colds. It's just it's because they're down to conflicts. So when we're going to talk about that in a minute. But we're going to talk about conflicts, aren't we? And we're going to talk about, so those of you that are interested in what makes us sick, the real cause of what makes us sick and ill, Jonathan's going to talk a little bit more detail about conflicts, and I'm going to obviously add my 10 penneth in there. But before we start going into that, so I'm just going to thought I would just make something quite interesting today. And just change it up a little bit. And obviously, with it being a special day today, being New Year's Eve, I just thought, I wondered if you knew that on this day in 1904, it was the first time that the celebration was in Times Square.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, and that was used to be called Longacre Square, not Times Square. So 1904 was the first time that they had that. In 1923, on this day, the BBC used Big Ben's chimes as its ID.
Okay.
Yeah, the British Bullshit Corporation.
Yeah.
And then in 1924, which is also similar to the BBC, Mussolini orders the suppression of opposition newspapers in his fascist regime of Italy. That happened in 1924. In 1964, Donald Campbell broke the water speed record of 276 miles per hour.
Wow.
On water, which is quite fast.
That is pretty fast.
Well, which is actually slow in today's money when you think about it, because I think I think there's many people breaking that actually around a lot of supermarket car parks. At
You reckon?
Yeah, I mean, if you go to Tesco's and Sainsbury's, I think people are far exceeding 276 miles an hour. And then when you actually sort of jump out of the way of them, they look at you as if you've done something wrong.
Yeah.
But I always find supermarkets great place to do rally driving, and obviously, you know, try and drive around there as fast as you can, because there's only people really walking around that car park with shopping. So
maybe they're hoping to go so fast they can outrun the virus. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe if they break the speed barrier, the virus won't keep up.
Yeah,
or
absolutely.
the light barrier, even. Maybe they break the light barrier.
Yeah.
Then the virus will just be like, I'll put an attempted.
Yeah, some of the people that I see driving around these supermarket car parks, it's like, I think it's like they're on a go-karting course in Southend or in Kent or something, you know. Like,
I haven't actually seen it, so does that mean I'm the one doing it?
Yeah,
statistically, if you haven't seen something, then you're the one doing it.
I see it all the time, and then when you sort of like looking out the way, they make you feel like you're the one that has done something wrong. But anyway, so another interesting fact is on 1967, Evel Knievel failed his jump of Caesar's Palace.
Wow.
So he tried to jump to Caesar's Palace on his thing. He broke his pelvis, his femur, his wrist, and both ankles.
Oh, pelvis. That's painful.
So,
yeah, there's quite a few conflicts running there.
Quite a few conflicts running there. Exactly. He attracted
to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyways, we sort of really, when we talk about conflicts, it sort of does bring us a segue in to what we're going to be talking about now, which is about conflicts. And through the research and through the DTO system, through the people that Jonathan have healed and through the people that I help, we come to realize that most illness, sickness, disease, depression, mental health issues, emotional health issues are all created by conflict. And I think that most people get confused about what a conflict is. And so Jonathan is going to go into a bit more detail about the topics of conflicts, which is really what causes sickness and illness. And so if you want to carry away, my friend, and start enlightening and educating the people of the world, what actually is causing these issues and how we, and you in particular, can have solved these over the past. So what is a conflict?
Okay, so we've spoken about conflicts on different podcasts, but I think we've not made it clear. I think it's still confusing for people. So there are different words for conflicts. There's shock, there's trauma, there's negative memories. These are all words for conflicts. And the big misunderstanding in the medical profession when they do talk about stress, so again, stress would be like conflicts, stressful life situations, is they think that that it all falls under one umbrella, that it has to be something traumatic to create a problem. It's a big misunderstanding about conflicts, that they have to be traumatic. And that's not true. For a conflict or a shock or a memory to create an illness and disease in the body, to start the process, because illness and disease is actually a process. It's not random. You're just told it's random. It's not random. It goes through a really beautiful process. And if you understand the process, you can actually reverse it, change it, or bring it out the other side back to healing again. So once you understand the process and then understand what creates it, which is the conflict. But for a conflict to create it, it must have 4 categories. There must be 4 elements to make it a conflict. And we call it a Udin moment. And a Udin moment, spelled U-D-I-N, is categorized because the first thing you need is something that's unexpected. So for a conflict to hit you, it must be unexpected. That's the U.
Yeah.
You must feel isolated. So like you're alone or abandoned at the time. It must be dramatic. It doesn't have to actually be dramatic, but you can dramatize it in your mind.
Yeah. With
no coping strategy. So unexpected, isolating, dramatic, no coping strategy. The first letter of each of those words spells Udin moment.
Correct.
So those are 4 categories for something that's going to cause or can cause illness and disease. Now, the beauty of that is that when you say to somebody, or when we say to someone, well, what was a shock or what was a trauma, that your brain might bring up lots of things. But when you say what was unexpected, dramatic, isolating with no coping strategy, then the information comes up more quickly, and more specific as well, because your brain is literally like Google. You know, if you type in brass knockers to Google, you're going to get the wrong thing come up. Yeah, well, you know, it depends on what you're looking for. But if you're looking for a door handle and you type in brass knockers, you're going to get the wrong thing come up.
Yeah.
You need to put door brass knockers, you know, or brass handles for doors. You need to be very specific.
Yes.
And so by saying to someone what was unexpected, dramatic, isolating with no coping strategy, and then filling in the type of shock it was, the information after that, Now you're talking directly to the unconscious mind.
Yes.
So rather than think of shock or memory or trauma, because these are all generics for different scenarios, just think what was unexpected, dramatic, isolating, with no coping strategy. And that's a great question to ask yourself. What's happened in my life that was unexpected, dramatic, isolating, with no coping strategy?
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be something traumatic. It could be that you got hit by a car and was in a sling for 3 weeks. But equally, it could be that your teacher told you off for flicking a pencil at one of the other kids. It could equally be that you got sacked from your job. It could equally be that your partner has criticised your car.
Yes.
That happened to one of my clients. His car got criticised by his girlfriend. This shocked him. It was unexpected because he didn't see it coming. He felt alone because there was no one there to help him or defend him. It was dramatic in his head. He built it up in his mind like it was a massive thing, and he had no way of dealing with it. And to him, it went against his core values, so it hit his lower back because he would never criticise her. Yeah. And he loved his car. That was something that was important to him. I know it sounds silly, but there are things that are important to everybody. And when you criticise those things, we don't like it.
So the thing I think where people get confused is that how does something like that cause illness and sickness in your body?
Yeah.
That's, I think, where the most people, because obviously people won't understand. They'll believe, well, they've been told it's genetics or it's bad food or, it's just the wear and tear or something's gone wrong or whatever. Yeah. And we know not that to be true. But how do we convey that information to the people that are watching the podcast of how psychologically or how that psychological perception of an event sends a signal to that part of the body? The conflict that goes on sends a specific signal to a specific organ in order for it to fail or start to deteriorate.
Yeah. So there's quite a few questions in there to be answered.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to be able to answer all of those because there's too many. Really? I don't dreadful.
I need to get a new someone new.
No, I can answer them all, but there's a lot of information there, so it could be there all night. Okay. Let's start with the first one. The first one was, how does you go from a conflict to shock?
You said you didn't know.
To create disease. Don't make me whack you with your cat.
Oh, don't. Yeah, go on.
Hit you. Was that a unique moment for you?
No.
Okay,
I'm
great.
okay. I'm fine.
So the traditional theory is, there's lots of theories for why we get ill and disease. Like Steve said, it's hereditary or it's wear and tear and things like this. And I want you to think logically for a moment. So, someone posted on my Facebook page when I posted something, she said logically, it makes sense we catch viruses. If you actually think logically, it doesn't make sense that happens. Because logically, if you're in a partnership with somebody, one wouldn't get it and the other one not. And then sometimes you both get it. And then sometimes neither you get it. You go out with your friends and family, they might get something, but you wouldn't get it. Logically, that doesn't make sense. I know the explanation is, your immune system is
immune
stronger.
System antibodies.
That's just a load of bollocks. That's not the way the immune system works. So that's just an excuse. It doesn't make logical sense. And the other theories about why we get ill, there are so many of them. They're just literally made up. It doesn't actually make sense. And they're all external to us. What doesn't make sense is that there are so many different things. And the problem is that if something's the cause of something, it's always the cause of something. So if I hold this pen, now if I let this pen go, it's always going to drop to the table. It's not going to go sideways. It's not going to go up. It's not going to go diagonal. It will always drop to the table. I could drop that 100 times and I'm going to get the exact same response. It's the same with illness and disease. You can do something over and over and over again. So you can have an illness over and over again, but it will always be the same root cause. It's not going to be anything different. And the way doctors discover root causes or come up with their root causes is not very scientific. The way they do it is they ask 100 people, what were you doing before you had the illness and disease? And if more than 50 people were doing that thing, they now say that's a cause of disease. This is insane behavior, because at that rate, you could say sleeping is a cause of disease, because if more than 50 people was asleep before they had the illness, or if more than 50 people drove a car before they had the illness, or if more than 50 people walked down the street, these could all be causes because more than 50 people are doing it. Obviously, they don't label those because that would be insanity, although we're getting close on that these days. But they just look at things like the food, like smoking and
drinking,
chemicals and drinking, and whether your mum had it and blah blah blah, and all of these things. I can show you people and tell you people who didn't have those things and still got the disease. or weren't doing that and still got ill. So logically, if you actually look at it logically, it's not sensible. But the one thing that we all have, the one thing that everybody in this entire world goes through are conflicts. It happens to everybody, from kids to middle age to old age to wealthy to poor to successful to failures to people who are wear suits or people who work in London or dustmen. It happens to everyone, people in relationships, people out of relationships. The one thing that happens to everyone is conflicts, and you cannot get away from that. So the one thing that's always going to be there is conflicts. And once you have a conflict or a Yudin moment, or a shock, if you want to call it a shock, it's another way of looking at it. But a Yudin moment, once we have a Yudin moment, that then starts you into the process for illness and disease.
Yes.
That now makes sense because it's logical, because the other things are illogical because there's so many of them. And some people who get the disease have had none of those things. So that's completely illogical. How can you get a disease where you have none of the traditional causes of that disease? But what they do have is a conflict. They have a shock running. So then that shock puts you into a process, and it puts you into a biological process. The organ in your body that's been affected, so let's say the liver, however it's responding, is now going through a process. It first enters the stress phase, which is your fight and flight phase, which is your sympathetic nervous system. And then at some point, it moves into the repair phase,
yes,
which is your parasympathetic nervous system. And it usually gets stuck in one of those two systems. You're either stuck in the stress state or you're stuck in the repair state. And that's where your symptoms going to lie. And that's where people get stuck. The idea of the process is to heal you and come out the other side, but people don't heal and come out the other side because they don't resolve the conflict.
Correct.
And I can give you countless examples of this happening where people have been to other therapists, they've been to doctors, they haven't got better because all the therapies they were doing were trying to heal them, but they hadn't resolved the initial conflict. So the therapies they were using couldn't move them through the process.
Yeah.
All those therapies, they move you through the process. They move you from the stress state to the repair state, from an acid state to an alkaline state. That's all they're doing. But if the shock is still running or the Yudin moment is still running, then none of those things work. When they work, that's because the Yudin moment's worn off. That's because Yudin moment has resolved. Yeah. And that can happen. Yudin moments can resolve on their own naturally, but often it takes a long time. And sometimes it never happens naturally, and sometimes it does happen and the brain is capable of resolving it. Yeah. And that's when it looks like the body's healed with all these other things. But in reality, the Yudin moment is the most important thing. Once you resolve that, then every other therapy you have, as long as it addresses the areas where that Yudin moment has affected your life, then it will start to heal you. Yes. Because when we have a Yudin moment, it affects our lives on multiple levels. And that's important to recognize and look at every level the Yudin moment's affected you on so you can heal fully and completely.
Yes, absolutely. So, one of the things that I think people don't understand is that what's really going on internally. So do you want to explain a little bit what's going on internally in the best way possible? So a shock happens in my life, in my environment. I perceive that as a shock. How does that now go from being a minor cough or a cold or a virus right the way through down to severe debilitating and life-threatening ailments and diseases? So what's really going on?
So I'm going to give you a simple answer, but actually for every single illness, there is a different process because every organ responds differently within the stress and repair phase. But the most basic answer is that when you have a Yudin moment, your cells are the cells of your body. So every single cell in your body or a specific organ, like the liver or the lung or the muscles, they're going to respond in a certain way. And they're going to move into the stress phase first. And in the stress phase, your sympathetic nervous system, the cells are going to react. Now, depending on the organ, depends on the type of reaction. But for instance, if we take a common cold, okay, very, very simple. Very, very simple process. I've cleared common colds to people all the time. They're very base conflicts. And in fact, once I really got this information, really understood it, I've never had a cold since.
No, we spoke about that in the last episode, yeah.
Because I know what the conflict is, it can't affect me.
Yes.
So what happens with a cold usually affects the nose, the eyes, and the ears. Now just think about that for a second. Because people say, oh, logically you catch it. Well, if logically you catch it, if someone's got it running their eyes, how does it end up running in your nose? That's not logical.
Yeah.
That's not logical in any sense. I defy any sensible person to tell me that's logical. So if you caught it, it would be the same symptom. Because if you catch it from someone, it's affecting the same organ in the body. That's just pathology. That's how that works. So that's not happening. So if it hits your nose, then your nose represents something specific. If it hits your ears represent something specific, and so forth, your eyes and your throat. Now,
Give an example of that so people get it. So if it affects my ear, that would be because of...
Well, if it affects your ear, that's because you've either heard something you didn't want to, or you wanted to hear something and you didn't.
Yes.
If it affects your nose, then it's something that's got up your nose or on your nerves.
Yeah.
If it affects your throat, slightly more intense conflict, that's a territory fear. It's a fear where someone or something is invading your territory or trying to take your territory away. So all of these are different conflicts. I'll give you an example. And I have spoken about this before, but it's a cold. It's the most obvious one. One of my friends, she one January, a few years back now, she broke out in a really bad cold where it affected her throat and her nose. And it was, I think, the 3rd week of January. And for every month, for 1 week, the cold would come out. For 3 weeks, it would disappear. And then for 1 week every month until June, the cold would come out. And she was kind of getting fed up with this because it wasn't resolving. And then all of a sudden in June, the cold came out even more, and her nose was streaming for like 3 weeks solid. It just would not leave. And she tried all the medication, done all traditional things. So she came to me because she knows what I do. And I said, okay, well, what happened in January? Because that's when it started. I said, what happened in January before you got it? So either January, December, that you were stressing about that really got up your nose. And she went, she said, oh my God. She said, I went to my boss to ask if I could have my usual holiday in June, which I have every single year. And I'd already booked it because I know I have it. So she already booked the destination of where she was going to go. And the boss turned around and said, no, you can't. Instant Udin moment. It was unexpected, dramatic, isolating with no coping strategy. Was it a big deal? Well, she booked the holiday, she paid the money, but was it life-threatening? Was a volcano erupting or was someone dying? No. But it was still a Udin moment for her. It was a shock. This got up her nose and on her nerves because she didn't like her boss to begin with anyway. And so what happened was, for 3 weeks of the month, she would stress about it. She would stress and try. I can't believe she did it. Blah, blah, blah. And then the same week every month, the 3rd week every month, she'd move into repair because that's when she did in January. She's trying to resolve the conflict. She tried to let it go. She tries to, it's okay. Don't worry. We'll do it somehow. We'll do it some other way. And that moved the body into repair. But she would keep jumping stress and repair for those few months. So when the cold was disappeared, that's when you're in stress. There's no symptom of a cold in stress. And in repair, that's when the nose starts to run. So in June, what that meant is she'd moved into repair more because it was just running constantly and she wasn't going back to stress anymore. Well, now that makes perfect sense. That's logical. Yeah. Now you can understand the whole process. You can see exactly why it's happening. But traditionally, you can't explain why a cold keeps coming and going if you catch it. It's not logical. It doesn't make sense. So think logically. But now you understand the process. You can see that she was just jumping stress repair, stress repair, stress repair. And it had a cycle to it. Every 3 weeks, she'd move into repair for a week. And then she'd go back to stress again. So all I did was I found that shock. She realised what it was. And I said, okay, so if that was a shock in January, what happened at the beginning of June to move you further into repair? She said, well, my boss called me into the office and said, you know that holiday, you can take it. And completely reversed the shock. Yeah. It was a complete reversal of the Udin moment. And once she did that, the nose she moved into repair and the nose just keep streaming. But unfortunately, the word repair is a bit misleading because it doesn't mean we've resolved the shock. It means the body has moved into a healing phase in the body, the parasympathetic nervous system. It's an alkaline state. It's where the body starts to heal and regenerate. And that's what happened. But she hadn't resolved how she felt and what she thought about the original Udin moment. She hadn't resolved the shock of being told no when she's already booked the holiday. So all I did was I used DTO. Yep. I went in, I cleared the shock. I took her back to the moment of shock, got her to play in her mind, used DTO to switch off all the thoughts, feelings, and beliefs. After that, she was very tired and drained. And within 36 hours, she woke up 36 hours later, and everything had gone. And it didn't come back again that year, or I don't think she's had a cold ever since, to be honest. So it was really, really simple process to understand how that works, and it explains so many things that the traditional viewpoint doesn't explain. That if we catch it, then it doesn't explain why things keep coming and going,
That's right.
or why other people get it and we don't, or why it will land in a nose in one person and the throat in the other person. It doesn't explain those things traditionally, whereas this understanding does. And this is not my understanding. I did not create this understanding of it. I created DTO, but the understanding I'm using is something called meta health, and that was originally, it wasn't called meta health by this person. It was originally created by a doctor. He discovered it accidentally, and then learned how it works and applied it, and then over the years it's changed its name and it's now meta health. But it's such an accurate model for why we get ill and disease, because it explains so many things. It really does. It answer all the unanswered questions that the traditional model doesn't answer and leave unanswered, that leave people frustrated, confused, baffled, and annoyed,
and taking in shitload of drugs,
and taking drugs that actually long term they are actually bad for you, and create more symptoms.
Yeah, because people really believe that taking a tablet is the answer.
Yes, but the problem is that there's a side effect to tablet. Every time you put something in your body that is not natural, that the body didn't create, there's a side effect to that. Whereas clearing the shock, finding the eudy moments or the pattern of eudy moments, because sometimes there can be more than one.
Yep.
Finding the pattern or the belief system that's got created from that, there's no side effect to that. You heal the shock, and emotionally and mentally you immediately feel better about that shock, and then your body starts to heal. There's no side effects except positive side effects. And the other thing of understanding that model, the traditional model keeps everyone in fear. The traditional model is designed to keep you in fear, suffering, and a victim mentality. And as it states in the DTO system,
powerless
and completely powerless to do anything about it. That's the victim mentality. Your powerless to do anything about it. You're in a victim state and you're suffering. You can't change it according to the traditional model. And it's completely fear-based. And all you have to do is look at what's happening in the world today. It's completely fear-based.
And leaves you powerless, and you can't change it, and you can't see it. So where it's out there, but I don't know when I'm going to get it. I'm not going to get it.
Yeah.
See, that's the thing for me. This whole contagion myth is the whole thing. Is that it's very easy to turn and say, "Oh, that thing that you can't see, it's everywhere, and it's so small, and you've got to be scared about everything, and all these people are dying, and all this is happening, but you can't see it, and it just doesn't add up."
No, it's just not logical if you actually think about it.
It's not logical,
and it is just instilling fear. And the medical profession have done that for years. This other model that we follow, meta health, it's not fear based. There's no fear to this model. The model tells you that illness and disease is not random. It's a process. The process can be changed because we know what starts the process.
Cause and effect.
The process also explains all the anomalies of all the unanswered questions that traditional medicine cannot answer. So it's a complete process, a complete understanding of why we become ill and diseased. It also explains why sometimes alternative and holistic therapies don't work.
Yeah.
Because that confuses natural therapies. It confuses them when their therapy doesn't work. It explains why that is. It explains why traditional medicine doesn't work, apart from the fact it's following the wrong model. But when it does work sometimes, it explains why it does work.
Yep.
And it explains why it doesn't work. Because people say, well, if it doesn't work, then why do people get healed sometimes? Well, it explains that. It explains that if you're taking medication and then all of a sudden you feel better, that's because the shock's worn off. And you no longer need to take the medication any longer. Well, that's because the shock's worn off.
Yeah. If
you take a headache tablet, then basically what happens to the headache tablet, migraine, because headache's a stress state, but a migraine's a repair state. So if you've got a migraine, you take medication, it looks like the migraine has gone. It hasn't. It's put you back into a stress state. You've moved backwards. And when you come off the medication, you move forwards again and the migraine comes back out. Now I understand, it makes perfect sense. It's completely logical because before it doesn't make sense why it's doing it. And you've got to keep taking the medication. Whereas if you go back to the original shock, switch it off, you no longer get the migraine. So you don't need the medication. It's really simple.
Yeah.
And I've done it for migraines and headaches so many times.
Yeah.
They're one of the easiest things to get rid of. I've even done it with cluster headaches, which was a little bit more complicated, but it was still possible because it's multiple triggers for that. But it explains it so much better and so much more accurately, and I can literally explain any symptom to somebody, certainly one that I'm used to working with, why it happens, how it happens, and explain all the anomalies. And I can even say to someone as they heal what their next symptom is going to be, or could potentially be.
Yeah.
And you cannot do that with traditional medicine. I defy any doctor to say, as they heal, what's the next step going to be.
Yeah.
And
I know. It's
they
crazy.
can't, but you can with meta, because you understand what the symptom is in each phase.
Yeah.
So, you know, one lady I treated, it was I've told a story before, but I'll just abbreviate. I was treating her for hysterectomy, and I knew that as I started to heal it, her stomach was going to cramp. I knew that's a possibility. So I said, look, if your stomach cramps, give me a call and I'll switch the cramp off over the phone. So she went away, and although she thought I was weird and nuts,
which you are,
which I am, and she didn't totally believe me, when her stomach cramped, she went, oh, no, John said that. I'll just give him a call. Yeah. She gave me a call, and I switched it off for her over the phone. I wasn't using DTO back then. I used tapping. I didn't have DTO back then. It was long ago. But I still was able to switch the cramping off. And because I told her and explained it, it actually calmed her a little bit. Because before, everyone's in fear. What am I going to get next? How's it going to happen? But with meta, you can actually explain what potentially come next. You can explain why it's happening, and it's actually okay.
Yeah.
And then you can then start to heal it and change it.
Yeah, I think the problem is a lot of people have these belief systems which were installed from very young. As we catch stuff, we spread stuff that is to do with your genetics. It's been passed down. My mum had it, so I've got it. We hear so many stories around the reasons why. None of them have any proof behind it whatsoever. No. It is just. I tell you what. Here's this. How about this one, John? I've got sunburn.
Yeah.
Right, so I've got sunburn, so I must have caught it off somebody.
Who said that?
I know. Well, how else would I have got sunburn?
I see, gotcha. Yeah, how else would you got sunburn?
How else would I have got sunburn?
Yeah,
I've got sunburn here. Right? How else did I? But it's obvious something outside of me created that sunburn.
Yeah.
Right. So something outside of me created the sunburn.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my cells reacted to that. It's exactly the same way as how your cells react. Something outside. Whether that be electromagnetic frequency, radiation, something outside of me affects those cells, and then the cells react in the same way as sunburn happens when the sun hits it. You know, so yeah, we get told all of this stuff, and none of it's ever validated. And the problem is that it leaves us in a state because we don't know, and we put all of our faith into people that are ultimately trained and been educated in it, apparently. And surely over the years you realise that I've never ever been healed of anything. It's only when I started working with you that all my stuff just got healed. Simple as that. So,
but I'll make it clear, your body healed itself.
Yes, it healed itself
by me clearing the traumas
and the conflicts.
I didn't heal you.
Yeah, exactly.
I look like Jesus. Yeah, and I go yes, but I it's not. Look, God bless Robin Williams.
Yeah.
But I do not heal. I just clear the traumas,
no, exactly.
Clear the belief system, clear the emotions, and the body naturally heals itself. It naturally moves through the process.
Correct.
From the stress phase to the repair phase, then comes out the other side and goes back to homeostasis and balance, which is where where your body should be. Then rebalances itself.
Yeah.
And that works so often, so many times. You do sometimes have to do some other things like detoxify the system. Yeah. But if you're detoxifying with juicing or nutrition and it's not working, the reason it's probably not working is because the shock's still running. Yes. If you find the shocks, then detoxify, then it will work perfectly.
Yeah.
Because you need to get inflammation out of the body, and detoxifying is a good way to do that. But if the conflict's running, the inflammation will just clean to your system and go, nope, I'm not moving. And it will stay in your system. It will only flush out your system once you clear the shock.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think tomorrow we're going to do a second part of this where we're going to start talking about specific illnesses, ailments and diseases that are caused, and we're going to actually go to the shock and actually say what causes them. So tomorrow night we're going to go and discuss in a bit more detail. But just for example, if you're getting a cold, the chances are you've had a shock which may have made you angry. If you're running a virus, it's because the cells are creating the virus. Something is causing it. This virus is the effect, not the cause. The cold is the effect, not the cause.
Yeah.
And so if you understand that, and understand that there's always a cause, and your body is reacting to that cause, which goes into an effect. Like it'll be a viral state, or it'll be a cold state, or it'll be a headache because you're in stress. Whatever symptom it is that you have or experiencing is because of something's caused it. everything's just a symptom. Everything's just an effect. And when you understand that, then realize that if everyone could wake up to that fact, none of us will be locked in our houses. None of us will be wearing masks. None of us will be leaving this nonsense that we spread all this bullshit. And we're all going to get sick, because it doesn't work like that. And as soon as people start waking up to this and learning about it, instead of sitting in front of the TV, go and learn about the nature of viruses. The fact of the matter of a virus, they're not alive. They have no respiratory system. They have no digestive system, right? No. They're nothing. They're just a protein. So here's the thing. If it's just a protein, which is basically a solvent or a soap that gets put into the cells to remove the toxins and poisons, here's a question for you. So if it's just a protein, like a soap.
Yeah, which is just a protein. Scientifically speaking, it's a protein.
So
we didn't make that up.
So how does something that's not alive, that doesn't have a respiratory system, doesn't have a digestive system, and it's just a protein, how does that mutate?
Yeah, no, it can't.
How does it mutate?
So something can only mutate or survive on something that is living.
Correct.
So a living organism can only live on another living organism. If it's an organism that's living, like a work surface or clothing, it can't survive. And if it's not alive to begin with, it's not alive. It can't reproduce. It can't change its structure and function. It can't do anything because it's not living to begin with.
That's right. Viruses aren't alive. They're just a protein.
It's just a protein. It's just so when
people watching too many movies.
When you see protein bars in shops, they're not multiplying next to each other, are they? Protein bars. They're just sitting there. They're just doing that because they're not alive. The chocolate bar or the protein bar isn't multiplying multiple times when it comes into contact. It's doing nothing. Because that and all this Dettol bollocks, seriously, you're literally buying bottles and bottles of Dettol, cleansing yourself over something that's not alive. It's literally insane, but you've been taught it for so long. I just want to go back to the cold things I didn't explain on cells. So basically, as Steve asked, what happens is when you have the shock, so the shock is something that gets up your nose, say, in that moment, the nose, the organ of the nose and inside the nose, the cells start to break down. And in that moment, they break down and it becomes like a honeycomb in your nose. So you start getting holes and gaps. And then what happens is the toxins from the stress from your body then fill in those gaps. So now you've got all the cells broken down like honeycomb.
Yeah.
So there's lots of holes like an aero bar. And then the toxins get filled into that gap. And then what happens when you move into the repair phase, the cells start to regrow all the cells that have depleted. And as they do that, all the holes start to regrow and it pushes all the toxins and crap out of your system.
Yeah.
So that's exactly that's the pathology of what's happening in the body. It's not something that we've made up. It's the pathology of what happens in the body when you move through the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system.
Yeah.
And it's very, very simple and basic, because one of the big misunderstandings about illness and disease, forget conflicts, forget this, forget that. If everyone could just grasp this one premise, they would no longer be frightened of illness and disease. Because it doesn't matter what illness you have, whether it's an ingrowing toenail, whether it's chronic pain or a migraine or a virus or cancer or diabetes, whatever it is, the cells in your body can only do one of two things. Cells in the body are either shrinking or growing. That's it. They do nothing else. They either shrink or they grow. They either diminish or they multiply. They either get smaller or they get bigger. They do nothing else. And every single symptom in the body is an explanation for what the cell. So osteoporosis is the bone cells decreasing. So osteoporosis is when the bone cells are decreasing and the bone's getting weaker, all right? That is a decrease in the cells. That's all it's doing. The bone's getting weaker. The cells are depleting. They're diminishing.
Which would have been caused by a shock.
Which is caused by shock. But that's the stress phase. The repair phase is osteoarthritis. That's where the bone cells are growing.
Yeah.
So all they're doing is shrinking and growing. Now, when bone cells grow, that's fucking painful. I don't know if you've ever seen Harry Potter, when he literally loses the bone out of arm and she says, oh, I can mend bones really quickly, but to regrow them, that's really painful. That is painful because when the bone regrows, that's painful. But the cells are only shrinking or growing.
Yeah.
Whether it's a tumor or anything, a tumor is cells growing.
Yeah.
Whether it's a virus It's the protein expanding and growing
Correct.
more cells
Correct.
to flush the system. It's not, and then it washes out and lets them go. Doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah.
Your cells are shrinking and growing. If you could just grasp that one premise, that's one premise. That one premise that no matter what illness and disease you have, all your cells are doing are shrinking or growing, then you would no longer be. Once I learned that, I was like, wow, I'm fine.
Yeah.
I'm totally fine. Because then all I need to understand is why they're shrinking or why they're growing. That's all I need to understand. Why they're shrinking, why they're growing. Once I then got that, and I realized it started from a yielding moment or a conflict, then I could resolve anything that was happening to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's that simple.
You talk about tumours. I did put this up earlier, but Bobby, she said my brain tumour was caused by very toxic relationships and her environment. And, you know, that's pretty much spot on. There was a conflict there that was running in her relationship that caused the tumour. It was the relationship that caused it. So, and so the environment is causing a conflict in her. The body's reacted in that certain way and then come out with an ailment. And as soon as she got out of that relationship, she healed it through her own methods, but because he was no longer in the relationship, the tumour disappeared.
Tumour started healed.
Yeah,
because she moved out of the environment.
Yep.
And it resolved the conflict for her environmentally.
Conflict, yeah, absolutely.
She may have had some of the emotional response running, which I believe you've been switching off.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it resolved the conflict for her. If she stayed in a relationship, well, that could have been a problem.
Absolutely.
Because unfortunately, I know people are going to write in and go, well, why does illness kill you? Unfortunately,
treatment.
Well, it's
or the conflict hasn't been resolved.
So there are some illnesses that, because an illness, the cells in your body don't have a brain. They do have a brain. That's called a nucleus. No, that's not the brain. That's what used to be called the brain. The lining around the cell is actually the brain of the cell. But that's not traditional medicine. That's Bruce Lipton. Look up Bruce Lipton. But it doesn't have a logical brain that says we're going to live or die. Its literal brain is to help you survive.
Yes.
But sometimes to help you survive, it will actually kill you. It has no idea that it's trying to protect you. And so that's what a heart attack is, unfortunately, sometimes. It's a little bit more complicated than that. But a heart attack obviously can kill you. It is a conflict that's running. And if it runs for a period of longer than 9 months, it can then put so much pressure on you that you end up dropping down dead.
Yeah.
And that is something that the body does because it doesn't know that it's going to kill you. It has no idea that that's a bad thing. It's just literally in fight and flight mode, trying to get you out of a dangerous situation.
Yeah.
But not all illness and disease do that. In fact, most illness and disease don't do that. So if some people are dying, I'm not saying they don't die of illness and disease and flus and viruses, we die of those. But it's because of the conflict is running for such a long period of time that it actually ends up often taking you out of life. It doesn't always have to be that way. It can be reversed and changed. You just need to understand that what's causing it and treat the root cause. And that's just something traditional medicine don't do. I
just want to add, there's a lady that come to me for depression and for weight loss about 18 months ago. And whilst I was working through it, she basically said to me that she's complaining about pains in her side. And so I asked her I said to her, what's going on? She says, I've had kidney infections really much since I was a kid, since I was about 5. And I've had them and I've been in and out of hospital pretty much every 3 months for as long as I can remember. And so every 3 months she's in hospital, she's in there for a week, she can't eat, she's in loads of pain. She'd already had a kidney removed and she's now only got 1 kidney. But obviously every time it happens, because that gets infected, she's only got 1 kidney, she's in and out of hospital. And so I looked up what the conflict, you actually spoke to you, but I looked up what the conflict was for kidney infections. And that's the conflict around that was abandonment. Okay. Yeah. So it's an abandonment issue. So once I learned what the conflict was that affects the kidneys, which is abandonment, I just went back to her past and switched off and removed or healed all of the times at which she'd been abandoned throughout her life, right the way back to the very earliest memory. Yeah. Once I went back to the earliest memory, which I believe was her seeing her dad being taken away and taken into surgery. So if you think about it, you're a 4-year-old, 5-year-old kid, you go and see your dad in hospital, just to get to be have an operation, and they take him away on the trolley and disappears. As a child, you're thinking, oh my God, they're taking my dad away. Yeah. That was the shock that she had of being abandoned by her father. And ever since then, she'd had these kidney infections. Once I'd gone back and switched off all of the abandonment issues throughout her whole life, because she had a belief she was going to get abandoned, she kept recreating more abandonment.
Yeah.
Once I've gone back and switched off all of those, I believe in the last 18 months she's not been back to the hospital for once with regards to the kidney infection. It hurts occasionally, but it's so in all those years, I mean, I think she's 45 now, 44, 45. For 40 years, she's been in and out of hospital, drugs and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
And she comes to see me, and within 4 sessions, I switched off all the abandonment issues, and she's no longer had one kidney infection in the last 18 months. So, and all I did was, again, it proves just resolving the conflict and the shocks, it then automatically healed the body. But because I hadn't resolved those shocks, she kept going into the stress repair, and she was in and out of hospital constantly for most of her life.
Yeah.
And so it just proves that, again, traditional medicine and traditional techniques, or whatever you want to call it, wasn't working. And, you know, like I said, all I did was switch off the conflicts, and she healed straight away. So that's a really good story explaining how a conflict affects somebody. And once you switch it off, how they heal from that, and they no longer have to go back. But if she'd have stayed doing that, she'd be in and out of hospital every 3 months and not getting any better. But, you know, but we still keep putting faith in this system, and we keep going back to it, and don't listen to people like Jonathan, especially who spent 20 years actually physically healing people, because he understands what's causing the illness. We don't listen to people like John. We just go down this bullshit regime of just of drugs and feeling powerless and believing that all this stuff is caught and spread, and there's something wrong with us, or it's genetic, and it's absolutely insane. And I feel sorry for people, you know, especially when I'm seeing on my Facebook. We've been doing these podcasts now for almost 9 months, and I'm still seeing the same crap every day. If people would just come and watch these podcasts and listen to John and listen to what he explains, nearly all of this stuff would go away. People would be better. No one would be stuck in their homes, but people aren't willing to do that. They just want to sit in front of the TV, watch British bullshit broadcasting, and then just keep information repeating without doing any research. And,
well, certainly,
and that's how we've been conditioned. People have been conditioned, but it's sad.
Certainly, if 60% of the world healed their traumas within 2 months, 60% of illness and disease would vanish overnight within about 2 months.
I'd say the same thing about mental health. I say the same thing
mental
about
health, physical health.
Yeah.
Within about 2 months, 60% of illness and disease would literally resolve within 8 weeks. And then the other 40% will take a bit longer, and then there'll be 10% which take a bit longer still, and be other factors as well.
Yeah.
And there are some other factors that play parts in it. You have to look at different things, but the root cause is going to be that biological shock. The root cause is going to be the stress that created in the first place, the Udin moment.
Yeah.
And I did the same thing last year with a lady with bladder pain.
Yeah.
And I work with chronic pain all the time. And I actually spoke to her just between Christmas and New Year, just recently. And she's still absolutely fine. Yeah. She's not had any problems. In fact, she's loving work. She's back at work, which she couldn't do properly before. She's going out enjoying herself. She's living her life, and she's so happy. She was literally so happy. Yeah. When she said to me, she said, "It's just amazing. The whole world has changed."
Yeah.
And she said, literally, everyone knows your name because I talk to you about everybody.
Yeah.
And which is lovely to hear. But it was just seeing this joy on her face, because she's no longer worried about having to go out and whether she's going to have pain or get caught to the loo or and have to hide all of that. Yeah. And she just looks so much lighter and freer. And it's sad to me that more people don't do this, because sometimes it's challenging.
We're putting the information out there, but, you know, people aren't sharing it. People aren't helping us educate other people. People are just stuck in this. They're asleep. It's like they don't want to learn, or they don't want to know, and they just want to stay. It's like they don't want to learn. They want to stay stuck with that belief system. And the problem is that belief system isn't working for anybody. Full stop. It's not working for anybody. It's not working in mental health, emotional health, physical health. Not working at all. And yet we sort of have the answer. And yet people would rather just stick to what they read on Facebook or what they see on the TV, and it's just crazy stuff. But
like I said before, people really identify with their belief systems, and when you identify with a belief and make it about you, and you identify with it so much that you couldn't possibly let go of that belief or look at a new opinion idea, that's when that becomes a problem. And it becomes a problem in every walk of life, not just medicine or health. If you rigidly stick to any belief system without looking outside of it, or at least being open to look outside of it, you're going to be stuck somewhere in your life. I had to do that recently with relationships. Before I got into
You've had a relationship?
I have.
What's it like?
Just the one.
What's it like having a relationship?
Yeah. But before I met my current girlfriend, I had some real belief systems about love and romance. And I was a hopeless romantic. I still am to a certain degree, but some of those romantic beliefs weren't working in my brain.
Yeah.
It's not that they weren't necessarily true, but they were playing in my brain. And that wasn't, and I was clinging to this notion of this hopeless romantic thing, and it was fogging me. And so I had to switch those off. And then luckily, well, not luckily, but once I switched those off, a really great girl came into my life.
I was going to say, isn't these days relationships not really about love and romance anymore? It's about what you can get and what you can have.
It is all about what you get.
How much you can acquire.
It is, yeah. And it's about expectations as well.
Expectations as
well.
A
lot of relationships are based on expectations. Now,
absolutely.
Don't misunderstand.
And guilt. Obviously, plenty of guilt as well. Loads of guilt.
And don't misunderstand me. I'm not claiming to be an expert in relationships. By any stretch of imagination. I do think I'm an expert in chronic pain, but relationships, not so much. But what I'm using an example because that was a belief system about a romance that snuck up on me. I didn't know it was there.
It
snuck up on me. It
snuck.
It was like Santa creeping down the chimney to leave his presents under the tree. Except he wasn't naked and in my bed.
No, it's just an anagram of Satan. So
okay, well, fair enough. It is an anagram of Satan. Satan. Oh, okay, fair enough. I didn't know that.
Conspiracy theorists out there going to be all over it.
I was going to say, they're going to say claim Santa. He's part of the cabal. And the deep state who's trying to control the world right now.
Well, he is. He is Satan because you get, Satan, Santa is you've got to light from the day your kids are. You're just going to light them for 10 years. And but that's okay. It's fine.
I like Santa. It's fine.
Do you like Satan?
You like Satan? I like Satan. Yeah, I like Satan. He was.
That.
Yeah. Well, as Rick Miles once said. If hell's all whips and chains and bondage, then I'm on. That's
a nice thought.
So he said that in a sitcom Bottom. It was very, very funny. If you're watching in a different country, you probably won't get what that is. It was a joke, by the way. Just to clarify that. But the belief system for me that I'd followed of all this romance, because I love romantic movies. I'm a hopeless romantic. But some of those beliefs weren't working for me. And I didn't realize I was clinging to that concept. I had no idea that I was clinging to those beliefs, and they were actually affecting me in relationships and stopping me from attracting and maintaining a healthy relationship. So although it's slightly off topic of health, it works for every scenario, and I think it's a really great illustration of it. That's slightly different.
Yeah. Okay. Well, look, we're on to an hour and 2 minutes now, so I think we're going to wrap up now for tomorrow. So we're going to talk about maybe 3, 4, 5 different illnesses, ailments, diseases, and we're going to go to what the conflict is that actually causes them. And also give some examples of how they've been solved and healed, and also give a solution to, if you have got that, how you can solve and heal it.
And we're going to cover ones we haven't covered before. So it's going to be brand new, different illnesses that we've treated, but we've not necessarily covered before on a podcast.
Yeah, something like diabetes would be a good one. We haven't covered that.
No, we haven't covered that. You could do the epilepsy one.
I could do the epilepsy one,
the bladder one, I could talk about that one, and multiple different other ones we'll talk about.
Okay, cool. So we're going to do that tomorrow, and I think what time should we do that?
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock tomorrow night. Okay, so 7 o'clock tomorrow night, we're going to do part 2, which is the follow-up to this. We told you about conflicts and what causes illnesses and disease, and we're going to come up, both myself and John, and talk about how we've solved conflicts in other people to heal them from those ailments. So I guess that's it for just for tonight. Me personally, I'd like to thank all our viewers and all my friends, family, people that are watching. A really, really amazing Happy New Year. Have a really good evening tonight. Sending you loads of love, and hopefully 2021 will be a much better year for everybody. And if you understood what causes the conflicts of virus, then we'll be out of it a lot quicker. But if we carry on believing this nonsense, then we're going to be in it for a lot longer. So anyway, I would just like to wish again all of you a really, really happy Christmas. Happy Christmas, Happy New Year.
Christmas.
Happy New Year. And hopefully you'll continue to watch us next year. John, have you got anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, no, I'd just like to say that if you're interested in learning more about the illness and disease model, the mental health model, then I've started releasing videos explaining this totally free on a website called decodingillnessanddisease.com. You just go to that decodingillnessanddisease.com, and there are videos. There's about 5 videos on there at the moment, walking you through the basic process, exactly how it works, how it got created by the Dr. Hammer, and I'm going to add more and more videos over the coming year and explain this process for people who want a different understanding, people who want a model that actually works and gets you better when nothing else has. People who are tired of the traditional model. Obviously, if you love the traditional model and you love being sick, this is not for you. I personally hate being sick. I don't hate it. I know it's a repair phase, but I don't want to be sick. I want to be healthy and well.
I like being in fear of being sick.
You love being in fear of being sick.
I mean, chuck on the BBC, lock yourself away, wear a mask.
Feels good,
don't go out.
Yeah.
Don't speak to anybody.
No. Separate from everybody. Fantastic. Be scared of everybody.
It's the best method to stop any illness.
I think so. But if you're not like Steve and you don't want to be like that, you want to be like me, healthy and well, and you want to live no longer in fear of being ill or diseased, then go to decodingillnessanddisease.com. The videos are free. Just watch through them. Sign up for the newsletter, and I'll notify you when a new video gets uploaded. Yeah. And on that note, I'd just like to wish everyone a very happy new year. And I really look forward to 2021 being a million times better year. And if everything I've heard is true, then it's going to be an amazing year.
Too. I hope
and an amazing century by all accounts. So I really look forward to that. And I really hope everyone who's suffered in 2020, they have lots of rewards in 2021, and they get their lives back and lives improved, because this year has been very hard for many people. I don't just mean mentally and health wise. I mean in business, loss of money, loss of relationships, and sometimes families have lost their loved ones because they've committed suicide, or they've died because they couldn't get the medical treatment that they wanted due to this complete nonsense that's happening. And that is the most tragic thing for me and Steve. We are so passionate, partly because of that reason, because so many bad things have happened that based on a lie, and that is what's tragic. So I really do hope that 2021 is going to be an amazing year for everybody, not the government, but everybody else who are really good, kind people and just want to get on with their lives and live a healthy, happy life. That's why we do our jobs. We want everyone to live a healthy, happy, successful life. And I truly believe that that's coming now. That's going to start.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree. And that's why I do what I do. I love doing what I do. And anybody that wants help, all you got to do is reach out to me or John, and we are always available. Even at the
not at 4:00 in the morning.
I am.
Don't call me at 4. I will be asleep. My phone will be on Do Not Disturb.
Absolutely.
But apart, you can call Steve at 4. He's always up.
I'm always up. I'll always help anybody anytime, mate. I've got nothing else to do with my time.
No, not at the moment.
Not at the moment, no. So anyway, again, thanks a lot from us at the Inside Out Effect. Have a really, really happy new year and a great 2021. So thanks again for joining us. Bye.
Take care. Bye.